Let's keep going. Now we're going to be on E on page 73-ish. So let's draw a few more truth tables. That can be E, can be whatever one it is that's not your homework, G, I, J, and then I'll do K a little later on. So let's do E. So E is negation P, arrow, P, arrow, Q. Let's extend this out a little bit. Here we notice that we have two letters. So we need, in this case, a P column and a Q column. One of the other questions I've gotten so far is, hey, but since we have a negated P, shouldn't we have a negation P column too? And the answer is no. The negation is something that we don't need to add a column in for, since the negation is already modifying a letter that we have represented in our key columns. So don't put it in there. It'll just probably make your TA confused. It would make me probably confused, and I'd wonder what's going on. So instead, let's just use our P and Qs. Now notice, let's identify the main operator first for this entire statement. The main operator here, when we look, well, this is all in brackets. Nothing in brackets can be a main operator. The negation is modifying the P, so that's probably not going to be a main operator either. So the main operator is going to be this arrow. So that's going to be the last column we want to solve. Now let's go back and do our pattern. Since we have two letters, we're going to need 4 rows. The outside pattern is 2 T's and 2 F's. The inside pattern is a T, an F, a T, and an F. Now let's go ahead and move all of these variables in and put them under the correct letters. So we're going to put the P column in twice because we have 2 P's. If I can write it down properly, T, T, F, F. Then we're going to put the Q column in once, T, F, T, F. My recommendation, always do parentheses first. So I'll start with the parentheses, and then we'll see if there's other stuff that we need to figure out. So T arrow T is true, T arrow F is false, F arrow T is true, F arrow F is true. The negation P, since there's a negation, we need to do the negation F, F, T, T. And now the columns that we're going to compare this column and this column when we're trying to figure out the arrow. So F arrow T is true, F arrow F is true, T arrow T is true, and T arrow T is true. Since we find all trues, this is a tautology. Now let's go on to G. G is P and Q and negation P double arrow Q. So we can go ahead and say that that's not the main operator and that's not the main operator because those are bound within parentheses. This negation is modifying the set of parentheses, so it's not going to be the main operator. So our and statement right here will be the main operator for this truth table. We notice that we have 2 letters, so we're going to have a 2-letter key. Put the P first, then the Q, because P comes first, then Q. Then we follow our pattern of 2 T's, 2 F's, then alternating T's and F's for our base column. Then we plug them in. If you get super comfortable with this, you can skip this part, but I would recommend doing it, because if you end up misreading something, you're just going to get points off on your truth table. For now, just do the long route. It does take longer, but it'll make it a little bit easier for you as things go along. Now that we've more or less brought over all of our columns under the appropriate letters, let's start with the parentheses. Let's start with the and statement right here. And I just clean this up a little bit. So and statements are only true when both of the pieces are true. Well, that's a T. But then we see that we don't have any other places where both of them are true at the same time. So we're going to have all F's down. Again, let me just clean it up a little bit. Now let's do the double arrow. Double arrows are true if both of the pieces match. They match there, they match there, but there's a mismatch between the other two. Looking at this, we've already done this side, but we have a negation right there. So we need to do the negation. When we're figuring out the negation column, we're going to be figuring out the negation of the main operator within the parentheses, which is that double arrow right there. So we flip that column. So that becomes an F, a T, and an F. Now we need to compare the two columns to figure out the and. But which two columns do we compare? Well, we compare the main column over here, because that's the column that's the main operator for this parentheses. And then since this negation modified the entire parentheses on the right side, this is the column that we'll compare on this side. When we do that, we're going to be looking for a place where we have two T's, since in order for an and statement to be true, we need both of the pieces to be true. Well, T and F, that's not true. F and T, nope. F and T, nope. F and F, definitely not. Since it turned out that we have a column where everything is false, this is an inconsistency. In other words, it's a contradiction. Now let's go ahead and do I. I is actually going to need more space than I initially thought. So when we want to do I, what we're going to find is that we have three letters, a P, a Q, and an R. So let's actually write down what we have first. So we want P and Q in parentheses, arrow R, and all of that is in parentheses, then arrow, P arrow R, and Q arrow R. So notice that this is pretty long. The other thing to notice is there are three letters on this side. There's a P, a Q, and an R. So we're going to need three columns over here. We haven't done that yet, but that's okay. For P's and Q's and R's, we have a very similar pattern to what we've been doing before. And for folks that are interested in knowing the math behind what we're doing, more or less the idea is that for every letter you have, so like if we have one letter, the equation is 1 to the squared, which gives us, well, oh no, I already screwed that up, didn't I? That's how many rows you're going to have. Ignore that part. Once you have more than, so if you have two letters, to figure out how many rows you're going to have, it's 2 squared. In other words, 4. If you have three letters, what it ends up being is, oh, I'm already doing that wrong too. Okay, pretty much just ignore everything that I just said. Because it's, what happens is you have 2 raised to the 2 gives you 4 rows. This is going to have 8 rows, which is 2 raised to 3. When you have a single letter, it's 2 raised to the 1, which gives you 2 rows. If you had 4 letters, it'd be 2 raised to the 4, which is, well, you get the idea, 16. That's one of the ways of figuring out how many rows you're going to have, and as you can see, it gets ugly really fast. And also, I'm not good at math, sorry. So let's go back to this. So the pattern, we're going to know that we're going to have 8 rows because we have 3 letters. Again, we do the letters in order. Since a P, a Q, and R is what the order we're presented with in the statement, we write P, then Q, then R. For P, we want 4 T's, then 4 F's. And then we do what we did before of alternating 2 T's and 2 F's. Then we alternate T and F. Then we need to put these under each and every letter. This does take a while, but it's good to practice. Let's do Q next. And last, let's do R. Now we can start figuring out the parentheses. The thing to notice is that we have several sets of parentheses. So let's do the innermost of each of the parentheses first and then go from there. In this case, let's do this first. For an and statement, we need both of the items to be true. So that's true, that's true. Everything else has at least one false. Everything else is false. Let's go ahead and do the other side first. For arrows, arrows are true so long as it's not T arrow F. So true, that's false, true, that's false. These are true, true, false, true, 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 false, true, true. And now we can go ahead and figure out the main operators within the larger set of parentheses. Within this larger set of parentheses, the main operator is the arrow. Within this set of parentheses, the main operator is the and. Overall, however, the main operator is actually this arrow right here. Everything else is within parentheses. If it's within parentheses, it cannot be the main operator. But let's go ahead and figure out these two. So we're going to compare this column and this column to figure out the value for the arrow. We know that any place where it's T arrow F is false, that everywhere else is true. So this is going to be the column that we end up comparing when we figure out our arrow. But now we have to do the and. For the and, we compare this column and this column. Sorry about that. One of my friends is texting me about seals. They are very round and very cute. As I was saying,